Caves are some of the most mysterious and mesmerizing places on Earth. They are silent, dark, and endless, stretching into the depths of the Earth like natural labyrinths. Caves hide ancient formations, fossils, underground rivers, and history itself. They offer adventure, exploration, and discovery. But caves are also dangerous. They are places where curiosity meets nature's raw, unrelenting power. One misstep, one sudden flood, one wrong turn, and adventure can quickly turn into tragedy. Some accidents happen in seconds, others unfold over hours, testing patience, endurance, and decision-making under extreme stress. Today, we explore 8 of the worst cave deaths in recorded history, examining what went wrong, how the natural environment played its part, and why these caves will forever carry a dark legacy. Nutty Putty Cave, Utah, USA. Nutty Putty Cave was infamous among explorers for its tight, twisting passages. Beneath the Utah desert, it was a natural labyrinth of tubes and tunnels, some so narrow that only the slimmest or most flexible caver could pass through. On that fateful day, an experienced caver entered the cave alone, seeking the thrill of exploring a notorious passage. The section he chose was only 18 inches wide, forcing him to contort his body into an almost unnatural shape. At first, he moved carefully, confident that he could maneuver through. But then, in a cruel twist of fate, his torso became wedged between 2 rock walls, completely immobilizing him. Rescuers rushed in, attempting every possible technique: ropes, pulleys, careful digging, even widening the passage. Hours passed. The cave refused to yield. Despite the best efforts of highly trained rescue teams, the passage was unforgiving. Ultimately, the caver became trapped permanently. Nutty Putty Cave is now permanently closed, a grim reminder that some natural spaces are literally impossible to escape. Mossdale Cave, England, summer of 1967. 10 cavers gathered to explore Mossdale Cavern, a twisting maze of tunnels and water-filled passages. The 2 leaders had explored the cave before and reassured the group. Confidence ran high. The cave itself was notorious for tight spaces, narrow crawlways, and shallow standing areas. After several hours, 4 of the cavers realized the challenge was too dangerous and returned to the surface. Above ground, clouds were gathering gray, heavy, but no one suspected what lay ahead. The remaining 6 pressed on, heading deeper into the far Marathon Passage, a tiny 18 by 12-inch crawl with a shallow stream trickling along the floor. Initially, the water was manageable, but the stream began to rise, slowly at first, then faster, creeping toward their faces. 3 hours from the entrance, panic set in. The cavers scrambled toward higher ground, trying to climb over rock ledges and crawl through narrowing passages. Meanwhile, the surface group noticed rain intensifying, forming a lake around the cave entrance. They ran to get help as water levels inside the cavern surged. Rescue teams worked tirelessly, pumping water, attempting to create air pockets, sending expert cavers inside. But Mossdale was merciless. The passages were too narrow, the water too fast, and the distance from the entrance too great. By the end, all 6 cavers trapped inside drowned, leaving a mark on history as one of the deadliest cave tragedies in the UK. Shaft Sinkhole, Australia, a freshwater sinkhole, calm on the surface but treacherous beneath. 9 divers planned an exploratory dive, guided by a single beam of light that penetrated the water, illuminating the start of the cave. The plan was simple: remain within 200 feet of the surface to stay in sight of the guiding light. But 4 divers were determined to push beyond the safe limit, aiming for 250 feet, seeking to break depth records. As they descended, nitrogen narcosis began to cloud their judgment. Their senses became dulled, movements slowed, panic whispered its way into their minds. Meanwhile, movements stirred up silt that had settled for decades. The water became a thick, impenetrable cloud. Visibility dropped to less than an arm's length, disorienting the divers. Oxygen began running low. The divers could no longer gauge distance or direction. Some returned to the surface after realizing the danger. Others pressed on, determined to reach the depth. When rescuers arrived, only a flashlight and a camera remained on the cave floor. All 4 divers had drowned. Shaft Sinkhole remains one of Australia's deadliest underwater caves, a grim lesson that ambition underwater can quickly become lethal. Jacob's Well, Texas, USA. Jacob's Well looked shallow, just 25 feet deep, but it was deceiving. 2 students, Richard and Clark, entered the underwater cave, inexperienced in cave diving but eager to explore. The first two chambers were navigable, but the third chamber had a 2-foot squeeze, a tunnel so tight it had already claimed lives. Their instructor, Don, had survived this cave himself once. He had tried to seal off the deadly chamber, warning others to stay away. Richard removed his tank to fit through the tight passage. Clark passed him the regulator back and forth, their movements synchronized but tense. Suddenly, a clang echoed. They had entered a false chimney, a tunnel that seemed to lead to the surface but was actually a dead end. Clark surfaced, gasping for air. Richard did not. Jacob's well proved a terrifying truth. Even shallow caves can hide chambers deadly to the inexperienced, and misjudgment can be fatal in moments. Gollum's Cave, Australia. Gollum's Cave, nicknamed the Cave of Death, had a notorious reputation among local cavers. 5 friends decided to enter at 3 a.m., hoping to explore the cave for thrill rather than scientific purposes. One of them, Mark, had some experience in shallow cave diving, but the others were amateurs, mostly drawn by curiosity and excitement. The first challenge came immediately, crawling through a shallow pool of cold water, barely deep enough to cover their heads. Once inside, the cave split into 2 small tunnels. They chose the left tunnel, which led to an underwater section barely 3 to 4 feet in diameter. Only one person could proceed at a time, forcing them to move in a strict sequence. Inside, the air was lethal. Carbon dioxide had accumulated in pockets, and oxygen levels were dangerously low. Cognitive functions slowed, panic and confusion set in. As the first friend reached the end of the tunnel, he realized the exit was unclear. His perception of distance and direction was warped by poor air and darkness. By the time the second person entered, the first had become trapped. One by one, each person followed, disoriented and unable to locate the exit, succumbing to the suffocating environment. Outside, the fifth friend, who had stayed at the entrance, heard nothing. He called local cavers for advice, then police. Rescuers arrived, pumping oxygen into the cave and attempting to drain water. By the time they reached the victims, all 4 inside had died. Gollum's Cave became a chilling example of how small, tight caves can be as lethal as massive underground systems, and how air quality alone can kill in minutes. Lechuguilla Cave, New Mexico, USA. Lechuguilla Cave is often called one of the most beautiful caves on Earth, with massive chambers, glittering gypsum formations, and intricate networks stretching for over 150 miles. In the 1980s, a caver named Thomas, experienced in extreme cave photography, ventured into one of the deeper, less explored sections. He sought to capture unique crystal formations that few had ever seen. Hours into the expedition, Thomas misjudged a narrow passage leading to a remote chamber. The twist and depth of the cave made orientation nearly impossible, even for an experienced caver. Oxygen levels in the chamber were naturally lower, and his heavy gear slowed his movements. He attempted to retrace his steps, but passages seemed unfamiliar, disorienting him further. Panic set in as he realized he was lost in a labyrinthine network far from the entrance. Rescuers, once alerted, faced extreme difficulty. Lechuguilla's passages were too narrow for multiple rescuers and too delicate to force entry. Hours of searching yielded only Thomas's body, positioned as though he had tried to find an escape but had succumbed to oxygen depletion and exhaustion. Boesmansgat, South Africa. Boesmansgat is one of the deepest freshwater sinkholes on Earth, dropping nearly 300 feet into darkness. In the 1990s, a diver attempted a deep solo descent. As he descended, the light disappeared. Cold water slowed his movements. Depth clouded his judgment. Nitrogen narcosis took hold, distorting his sense of direction. When he tried to ascend, he moved deeper instead. By the time help arrived, Boesmansgat had already claimed him. The sinkhole stands as a warning. At extreme depth, confusion can be fatal. Ape Cave, Washington, USA. Ape Cave, a lava tube formed thousands of years ago, is often marketed as beginner-friendly due to its wide sections and relatively shallow passages. But like many caves, it has hidden dangers in uncharted areas. In the year 2010, a group of hikers decided to explore a side tunnel not marked on maps. The cave had been partially collapsed in sections, with loose rocks and narrow crawlways. As the group moved deeper, a rock collapse occurred, trapping 2 hikers in a remote chamber. The confined space and unstable rocks made rescue extremely difficult. Emergency responders had to navigate the same dangerous passageways while managing oxygen limitations and potential further collapses. Hours passed, And despite their best efforts, 2 people lost their lives. Ape Cave demonstrates that even caves considered safe or beginner-friendly can be lethal when explorers stray into uncharted territory or ignore known hazards. Caves are mesmerizing. They are ancient, silent, and full of secrets. But these stories prove one thing. Caves are unpredictable, unforgiving, and deadly. One wrong turn, one miscalculation, or one sudden natural event can end a life in minutes or hours. Respect the caves. Prepare fully. Know your limits. Because in caves, adventure and tragedy are separated by just inches of rock or a single breath of air.